Okay. The CTC exists to make transportation planning, funding, and policy more understandable and accountable. Our workshops take place in diverse locations around the state so that commissioners and staff can directly hear from our stakeholders throughout California. Live closed captioning is available on this webinar. Please select the Show Captions tab at the bottom of the screen. There are a number of language options there for you to choose from. Any document that the CTC creates can be translated into any language you need. Simply email us at ctc@catc.ca.gov, and we will have them returned to you as quickly as possible. For all of our workshops, we encourage interaction with our stakeholders. There will be opportunity for questions and comments throughout this workshop. We will stop periodically throughout to address stakeholder questions. You should see the webinar control panel located likely on the bottom of your screen. There you will find the raised hand and the Q&A tabs. We encourage you to use the raised hand feature as soon as we reach the item to give the system time to acknowledge you. Commission staff will let you know when it's your turn to make your comment. Once you've been unmuted, please make sure to state your name and the agency that you are representing. Alternately, you may use the Q&A tab or the chat tab to submit your comment or question, and commission staff will read those on your behalf. As a reminder, each registered attendee is provided a unique link or a phone number to access this webinar. These should not be shared with other participants as this can create confusion for staff when making comments. Please do your best to be concise, and if you face any sort of technical issues, please feel free to reach out to me through the Q&A or the chat tabs. Thank you.
Thank you, Alika. So before we begin, I wanted to ask the group if there's any questions before we dive into the presentation for the day. And if not, we can definitely move forward, but wanted to give you all the opportunity. In case anyone's thinking about a question, Alika, go ahead and advance the next couple slides. And I think we can. So today's presentation too for everyone is very simple. What we did in this format, it's just a table. You'll see it. And so yeah, first we'll go through the topics recap. We'll talk about what you all said last time and how the direction we're proposing moving forward. We'll go over the development timeline again for all you visual learners out there. We have this time at the end for open discussion, sort of anything that you want to bring up. And then we'll do a wrap up and next steps. So the next slide, Alika, is the first one. Yes. So the first thing that we spoke about last time was whether or not to limit nominations to only the construction phase, considering that this cycle is entirely funded with PROTECT funding and limits pre-construction. So the PAED, PS&E right-of-way, it limits it to no more than 10% of the overall funding available. So we had discussed whether that was a good idea to allow all phases or to only allow CON, considering what little funding there is for all of the pre-construction phases. You all didn't like that. You wanted us to allow all phases, maybe do something in prioritization for selection. If it comes down to two applications, one is asking for all phases or even, let's say, right-of-way CON, and another one's only asking for CON, the CON would win out in that case, with all else being equal. So we will be allowing all phases. This will stay where it is in section 10. We won't be changing what is allowable for nomination. Are there any questions here? Are there any questions? No?
I'm not seeing any hands raised or questions come in.
Okay, perfect. Great. So we will allow all phases. Go ahead, click the next slide, please, Alika. So similar, we had asked for the first cycle, we had a lot more money. We asked, should we reduce the 50 million cap per nomination? Should we remove the cap? Nobody really advocated for removing. Everyone that did speak up said that they would be good with a reduction, but still capping nominations. So we had heard 25 million. So we're proposing going forward in that direction. Again, that's found in section 10. So right now, the guidelines from cycle, the first cycle say 50 million per nomination. Going forward, we'll be suing 25 million. Are there any questions here?
Not seeing any questions come in or hands raised.
Okay, well, we can move on then to the next one. Also, for everyone here, I'm not anticipating this being a very long workshop unless you all want to talk. Otherwise, it'll go by very quickly. So go ahead and click the next. Thank you. So tribal set aside, we briefly sort of talked about this last time, but we're just going to keep the 5% set aside. Even though we didn't have any tribal applicants in the first cycle, and I haven't been contacted at all yet, but the NAC is tomorrow, so we'll be making an announcement at the NAC. But we'll be keeping that set aside at 5%. It's not a cap for tribal projects. It would just be a set aside for them, like any tribal applicants. Are there any questions here?
Rebecca, we got one question from Loretta asking, what's the total funding available compared to total available in last cycle?
I had asked, I reached out to budgets. I still haven't heard anything yet in terms of what exactly is left. I did some back of the napkin, and I think we had it's like 86 million. And so this cycle will only have roughly, I've been saying 80 as sort of a rough estimate. So 80, that'd be the lowest it would be. So 80 million this cycle. The first cycle we had 296.5 million. So more than triple, or more than 3 times what we have now.
Nafili, I know you had your hand raised. Did you still want to be unmuted? Okay, go ahead, Nafili.
Okay. Yeah, sorry, I was trying to find some information on what I know my local agencies applied for previously. So it seems like this cap of 25 million would cut out some of the construction that was applied for previously. That so Mendocino
Yeah,
County,
so in cycle 1,
yes, that where they had only project development
okay.
funded in cycle 1.
Mm-hmm.
This $25 million cap wouldn't even, as far as I know, wouldn't be enough to fund even one of them.
Right, yeah, from last cycle. Yeah. So again, this is still proposed. It's not set in stone, but from everything we heard last workshop, I went back through and I listened to the whole thing. And I had only captured folks just saying that they didn't want to cut out PAED. Oh, but you did say Nafili, like, yeah, this would affect Mendocino potentially. Mendocino will be affected anyway because they still need right of way and construction funding, and right of way is still limited to that 10% for protect.
Right. Yeah, I guess maybe I didn't last time. I don't know if I just didn't hear that there was this idea of reducing it to 25 million. But if there were concerns about not eliminating any possibilities by not allowing PA&ED, which, those concerns were expressed last time and changes were made. It seems like we're really kind of doing the same thing. We're eliminating possibilities with this $25 million cap.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, we definitely are eliminating possibilities. So like I had said the first time, I'm pretty ambivalent to, I like the cap in terms of, you know, we make sure everyone gets something, but you all are the stakeholders and they're not my projects. So if you don't like the cap, I want to hear that. Lori, you want camera?
Rebecca, did the 25 million, was that just a number that you're just throwing out there as a discussion, or was that something that was
Somebody had suggested it. And it is here, I just have to find it. But somebody had suggested maybe just like doing a 25 million. So the 25 isn't necessarily strategic in any way.
okay?
The cap is a little strategic, but even if it were to be entirely removed, that's fine. But that does also then hurt everyone here. And because if your project isn't selected and there's only one project that could potentially be entirely funded, everyone misses out, which I'm sure you all are aware. So what would you all like? What all projects do you have? I know what's out there in terms of cycle 1. I know what Mendocino needs. I'm sure that, you know, that might be a little different. Cycle 2, the numbers might change a little, but other than that, I don't know what you all have.
Okay, if people care about this, they're going to have to comment, or or Rebecca's just going to make a decision. So we need to hear from people.
Please. And I do love making decisions, but I would like your input.
We have a couple hands raised. Emmanuel Martinez, go ahead.
Hi, good morning. Emmanuel Martinez with CVAG. For us, we're still facing a lot of flooding issues out here in the desert. Just with we're seeing it more frequent and more severe over the years. So I think for us, definitely for us, we would definitely want to keep, climate resiliency projects related to the flooding, and even blow sand issues, which is a unique issue, but more so flooding. I know, we're very grateful for the opportunity to address one segment of one of the biggest priorities out here in Indian Canyon, but Desert Hot Springs, they got hammered with Tropical Storm Hillary, and I think maybe if we were, so they got hammered. It's a disadvantaged community, and they need a lot of help out there. And so
Are
we
you
definitely
saying the
wanna,
25 isn't enough, Emmanuel?
I think the 25, given, I think we'll be okay with that. I think definitely, the more the better, but I understand in the context of the availability of money. I think 25 would still be enough to make a project financially viable.
I'm taking notes, so if you see me not looking at you guys, I'm doing that. Do we have any other comments, Alika?
Yeah, we have a couple others that came in. Okay, Carl Anderson, go ahead.
Thanks, Alika. Thank you, Rebecca, and thank you, Lori. This is Carl Anderson with the MTC. So first and foremost, I'll say I don't envy the position that you're in trying to, dictate whether or not there's going to be a cap. Granted, how much smaller the funding amount is potentially going to be. One thing that I'm reflecting on is I think that in cycle 1, we, obviously we had some state funds, and I think there was an intent to, continue or try to figure out a way to add more state funds to this program as it continues to evolve over time. So I'd be hesitant to introduce a cap that is pretty constrictive, that would limit applications that actually really need to show what type of, the scale of projects that they need to, navigate these climate resiliency issues. That way it enables us to, have more fodder for, legislation maybe in the future to secure more funding at the state level to advance these types of projects. So I'm not necessarily advocating to change the cap from cycle one, but maybe since we are, or maybe since there's a limited amount of funding this time around, you can introduce maybe like a statement that CTC will not fund one project that, you know, takes X% of the program funding availability or something like that. That way you're not limiting the amount of money that people are actually asking for their needs in their communities. Rather, you're just making a statement saying, hey, we won't fund, you know, just one or two projects because we're so limited in the amount of funds that we have right now.
Okay, I think that could probably work. So are you saying keep that 50 cap or remove the cap entirely with a caveat that, hey, if you apply, don't apply for the whole pot of money because we'll have a policy in place saying that we wouldn't allocate to only one or two projects?
I think keeping the cap at 50 is fine. I don't necessarily know if it's gonna cause a significant issue if I say, all right, remove the cap now, and then let's see what people really need are in their areas. But I think that's a great option, Rebecca, if you do want to do that.
Okay.
Thanks, Carl. We got a couple of comments submitted in. One is from Nafili Barrett stating, I recommend keeping the cap the same as last cycle. That way, it doesn't remove the possibility of completing projects that were partially funded last time. And then we got another comment from Loretta Ellard stating, for agencies funded last cycle for pre-development components, there was an expectation that they could come back this cycle for construction. The 25 million cap limits that possibility for larger projects.
What other projects would that be, Loretta? Do you know of any? Or are you just like, is this like a high level sort of statement, or do you know of like a specific project? Or is this about Mendocino?
She stated
Mendocino.
Brook Trails and Redemeyer Road, sorry, in Mendocino.
Okay. And that's true, Loretta. We did say that first cycle that you can apply for pre-con and then come back in the second and apply for the con funds, and that would limit them.
But this isn't saying they can't do that. You can still submit for your con funds, but
it wouldn't be the same project.
Right, but nothing says that you're going to get there's no guarantees. So, and just to be clear, when we're talking about guidelines are for the betterment of the program, not for specific projects. So I know people worry about specific projects, but the guidelines are for the good of the program as a whole.
I appreciate that, Lori. Thank you. Because the projects are very important, but when we talk about, you know, the program, we want to talk about like the longevity of the program. If it will be long, I don't know, but thank you, Loretta. I did capture that.
We got
so what, sorry, Lika. Sorry, no, go ahead.
We got another comment from Patricia Chen stating, we generally do not support caps. I suggest keeping the cap at 50 million or considering an alternative wording to keep opportunities open for more projects. And then we got another comment from Nafili stating you could consider waiving the lower cap for projects that applied previously, since those applicants originally applied based on the previous cycle guidelines.
That's interesting, Nafili. Trying to think really quickly. If we said, so interesting. So I guess I'm asking you folks, aside from the ones we already know about, is there anyone here who's thinking of applying to cycle 2? And do you know roughly how much your project might need? I asked this in cycle 1 repeatedly and nobody gave me an answer. So I'm really hoping that now, a year under our belt, collectively, you guys can answer me, because that is a really important information to sort of understand who might be applying, for how much roughly they might be applying. Because then if we did something like that, where we had a low cap, because everyone's like, oh yeah, we're gonna just do a couple things and it's gonna be $10 million, great. We'll have a lower cap. And then I like what Nafili said of maybe, you know, to get those projects past con, maybe we would do that. But that is also a little complicated. I can see that being a little difficult for applicants and for us on our end. So what would work for you all?
Rebecca, maybe
Yes.
Carl's idea was somewhat of a compromise. Maybe that's something you could see if people have comments on that.
We like have like a stipulation that, you know, don't exceed X percentage of funding.
Yeah. And I don't know, Carl, if you wanted to come off again and explain it again.
Yeah, it wouldn't be that the applicant exceeds a certain percentage of funding. It'd be more so that the CTC would be making a statement saying you're not going to fund X percent of the funding that's available in the program to one project.
Oh.
So let's say someone did apply for, you know, $75 million construction, you only have 80 million. That statement kind of already like protects you of saying, hey, we're not going to be funding a project that is going to be taking the lion's share of the available funds. But we're also encouraging applicants to still like apply for what their true needs are. Because ultimately that project list can, you know, be turned into an advocacy effort to show the state, hey, here's the types of projects that we need. Here's the types of fund, or here's the amount of funding that we need to, you know, backfill these needs.
Mm-hmm. I like that idea, Carl. Does that sit well with folks? Because I like that, because then we're getting really good information just to show like quantitatively, right? Like we got X amount of requests, we don't have the funding to do it. These are important needs. And it really shouldn't be any more work on your end if you apply to cycle 2. So what I'm hearing is remove the cap entirely, but then have a policy in the guidelines stating, you know, we like the commission shall not program a project that requests more than 50% of the available funding, which is still kind of the cap actually, but or we remove the cap entirely and it is what it is. Because then we will get everything. It's the most fair, I think, at that point to remove the cap and just, we still get all of our projects. I did see your hand, Carl. Get all of our projects in and then just fund what we can based on competitiveness. And then we still have a repository of look at all these projects that we couldn't fund because of the lack of funds. Did you have anything to add, Carl?
I don't think that he did. He lowered his hand.
Okay.
In regards to your earlier question, Rebecca, there was a comment added in the chat. And I apologize if I'm stating your name incorrectly, Sheila, stating that she's still looking into it.
Looking into the like a project, like a potential project.
I believe so.
Okay. Okay. We will revisit this topic, specifically the cap, again in our last stakeholder meeting before we present the draft. So this won't go away.
Yeah, so Rebecca, I just want to make sure everybody understands we're not hearing much of anything on this. So to me, that's except for Mendocino. So I don't know. It seems like it's leaning towards either keeping it what it was or removing it. So if people have other strong opinions, they need to voice them.
Or email me too after the meeting. I mean, preferably in the meeting, but if not, that's fine.
Yeah, no, I mean, they can, but then we'll just have to talk about it the next
Right.
workshop. So, yeah.
But some people don't like talking in public, and it's fine.
We got another comment that came in from Allison Winter stating, I agree with the comment to remove the application cap to see the full need. Is there a question in the application to explain the ability to accept a smaller grant award?
What do you mean by you mean apply for a smaller grant, Allison, or to be reduced? Like if you ask for 50 and we say, hey, we can fund you, but only 30. Is that what you mean?
She said yes.
Okay, so yeah, that can happen. If you know applicants, yeah, in short, yeah, my brain is like frying, but yes, that is possible. If it works for the applicant and it works for the commission, then sometimes a smaller amount is necessary. Anything else, Alika?
Let's see. I think Carl had something else to chime in. Carl, go ahead.
Thanks again, Nalika. I apologize if I didn't catch the person's name who made the last comment, but Rebecca, the one way that we get around this in MTC's regional ATP program, since the funds are not as big as the state program, we do ask for project sponsors that are requesting over a certain threshold of funding, that they also include a scalability plan to try and figure out if they're at the funding cutoff line and we only have X amount of money that's available, what are the core components that are still going to deliver the benefits that they're outlining in their application, that we can fund it at a lower amount. So that may be something that you could explore out into the guidelines to get around all this.
That's interesting. Okay, thank you for letting me know that. Lori or Alika, do you know if anyone at that commission, did we do that any of the programs at the commission? Scalability?
So like Carl said, that some of the MPOs do that in the ATP. I don't know about the other competitive programs though, if they allow that, but we can find out.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Okay, are there any other comments on the, we kind of went backwards, so we're still at the cap. Is there any or anything else, Alika?
I'm not seeing anything else at this time.
Okay. Okay, well, we'll so what I'm hearing a lot of stuff right now to sit and think about this, and we'll bring it back to the next stakeholder meeting to discuss it further. Yeah, we'll have to sit. We captured all of your feedback, so we'll have to sit down and think about how best to move forward. So we can move on, but no topic is ever truly dead, so you can always bring it back up if you want. The tribal set aside we've already discussed, so we can skip this one. We can move on to project selection priority. So last stakeholder meeting at the kickoff, we asked, should we prioritize? And you all said yes. For projects included in the script, it makes sense to prioritize based on that. Also, please note, you have until May to get your project submitted to Caltrans, so it is added to the unconstrained project priority list for the script. They have to submit to FHWA. They have their own timelines. So that link is, I think it's on the website, the LTCAP website. If not, it'll get added very quickly. Make sure your projects are on that list. When they are, we can give you some priority for project selection, and then also for those projects only seeking con funding, we will also then prioritize for project selection. Any questions here?
I'm not seeing any questions or hands raised, although Lucas Sanchez with Caltrans headquarters has dropped 2 links in the chat for everyone.
Oh, thanks, Lucas. Since we are talking about the script really quick, Lucas, did you have anything to add? Has anything changed? We haven't talked in a while.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I joined the meeting a little late and my dog is kind of barking in the background. So sorry if there's interference. Not really anything to add, Rebecca. I dropped the link that you just referenced in the chat to our Caltrans Division of Planning website for all things protect. We linked to the LTCAP website too. So those two are pointing to each other. And I linked directly to the Smartsheet intake form for folks to submit their nominations for cycle 2. I guess just keep in mind that same intake form is also for any FHWA Protect discretionary grants for the nationally competitive program. So if you have other projects that you're wanting to submit for that, which we found out recently should be solicited in summer of 2024, we don't have a better timeline than that at this moment. You'd be using the same intake form. 2 other quick comments on that is, yeah, Rebecca mentioned the deadline for submitting those is May 10th. We're just trying to be risk averse to make sure we can get everything to FHWA before applications would be due for that national program. We're having a virtual drop-in. A few folks joined the last one. We're having at least one more. There's one scheduled for May 1st, I think in the afternoon. I could double check the time on that and drop it in the chat maybe. And there's no pre-registration required for that. The link for it is on that DOTP website, our planning website that I shared first in the chat there. So you all can just join that Teams link. I'll be in there and you can ask me whatever you need if you have questions on the intake form. And I think in the first meeting, I'll just circle back to a comment, which was astute. Someone was, as far as prioritizing projects included in the script, I mean, someone had made a comment that it's kind of a box checking exercise. And frankly, it is. If your project is eligible, I'm hoping you all just submit whatever you're wanting to nominate to our resilience improvement plan, because if you are subsequently awarded, it'll be saving you money. And we want to make sure that we're saving everybody money and to make the most of that opportunity that this piece of the Protect program has afforded us. So please get those in and reach out to me if you have any questions. A few folks have already reached out. And yeah, that's it. Happy to take any questions on that piece again, if there are any.
Awesome. Thanks, Lucas. I appreciate that. I had a thought when you were talking and I lost it. So if I remember, I'll bring it back up. Are there any other questions, Alika, or can we move?
I'm not. Oh, actually, we have one other hand raised. Erin, go ahead.
I just had a question since you knew about the federal program. We applied for the direct federal and didn't actually understand the state process as well. But if anybody's heard when the federal awardees will be announced.
I'm guessing you're referring to cycle 1 last year. Those were due in
Yes.
August.
Yes.
Yeah. Those are supposed to, well, they had initially said award announcements would be in early 2024, and now the latest update is March, April timeframe. So technically could be this afternoon, or it could be sometime next month. We're still waiting for those patiently as well to see what got awarded in cycle 1.
Okay, and dumb question. I'm sorry, because I didn't understand this process before. Did the state one have planning, or it sounds like it was really focused on construction?
It's focused on delivery.
Okay.
The discretionary program has planning funds, and Caltrans also has a program to support planning funds.
Okay, and that's what we applied for, planning, because we really we're at step 1 here. We haven't done any of this yet. So, okay, thank you.
Was there anything else, Alika?
Let's see, we have one other question that came in from Loretta asking, will there again be an opportunity for rural agencies to have a $0 match?
That's a very good question, Loretta. No, unfortunately. So last cycle, for anyone who isn't aware or remember, we had state funding in addition to the federal funding, and that state funding was really open-ended for the most part. And so that is what we allowed rural, underserved, and tribal applicants to be able to request that their match be entirely covered with state funds. It was lovely. It was wonderful. It was like my favorite thing about cycle one. We don't have that this time. So the only thing that we do have in terms of match reduction is getting your projects on that unconstrained priority project list in the script. The script is the California Resilience Improvement Plan for Transportation, developed by Caltrans, developed by Lucas, really. And so getting your plan on that script, or sorry, getting your project on that plan will then reduce the match from 20% required to 10%. So it's still not zero, but it's better than nothing. Yeah, so no, we don't have that opportunity this time. Any other questions?
I'm not seeing any other questions or hands raised.
Okay. So we can move on to the next one. This will be very easy. Can we have STIP as a match? Can we identify STIP as a match? I talked to Casey Ruggiero, who manages the STIP. Yes, STIP can be allowed as a match source. So that was really straightforward. I don't have any other information. That will be added to the guidelines in section 9. So when we have our next stakeholder meeting, you'll be seeing that. Any questions here, or we can move on?
I'll pause for another few seconds here, but I'm not seeing any questions or hands raised.
Okay, we can go to the next one, tapered match. So tapered match is also called the non-proportional match that is sometimes allowable in federal programs. It would not be allowable in this program. So the concurrent and proportional match matching funds policy in the guidelines will not be changed. Tapered match, no. Proportional and concurrent match only. Any questions here?
Not seeing any hands raised or questions come in.
Okay. We'll go to the next one. Quick builds. We had this come up in the workshop last time. A few of you had said, hey, since we're constrained with funding, can we, ask for quick builds? For many reasons, no. So quick builds are not eligible for, I learned this. I didn't know anything. And now I do know. Quick builds is kind of a California thing, apparently. Started with the ATP, pretty much just for ATP. Quick builds are also temporary. They last between 1 and 5 years, which is kind of amusing to think about. If we funded quick builds, climate change is not temporary. So yeah, I'm so sorry, everybody. No, we can't get creative. If you want PAD, PSNE right-of-way funds, it will need to be delivered in that manner and not as a quick build. I was anticipating some questions or comments here. So, did we get any, Alika?
We can pause for a bit longer, but I'm not seeing anything at this point.
Okay, I was expecting a fight. I was expecting people to say, no, you're wrong. But I'm not wrong for once. That's amazing. Okay, so we'll just move on then. Take my win. The next one, we talked about cost benefit analysis, and I met with Okta to talk about how they did it in the first cycle. We got some information from them, but ultimately we're not going to be mandating any different cost benefit tool. If whatever you want to use, you can use. I do want to give folks a little bit of resource on maybe how to think about it differently, because the conversation with Okta was actually very illuminating. So I'm just right now trying to wrap my head around how, in what way do I make that, useful for folks? If I put it in the guidelines as like a supplemental resource, or if it's just on, maybe just on the website. So I don't know, any thoughts here? Does anyone have any opinion on what could be useful to you?
We did actually get a comment regarding the quick builds if you wanted a bit of a fight.
Oh, okay, sure, yeah.
So we got a question from Shauna asking, not expecting to change quick build recs with the feds, but quick build projects can also be used as pilots to try to determine what works before investing in more expensive projects.
Yeah, that is true, Shauna. I was a little flippant. You're right. But yeah, we can't use them. That is not an available option in this program.
Other than that, I'm not seeing any other questions, comments, or hands raised.
Okay, we can move on to the last one. Probably be finishing very early. We'll be adding a new appendix for considerations for evacuation planning. I got some good information from a contact in EDCTC who was able to give me some insight as to high level, things that you might want to consider when you're doing evacuation planning, things that you might want to add in your narrative to sort of show that community engagement and equity pieces that we look for. So that'll be added as a new appendix, and you'll see that next month when we have a discussion draft ready for everybody. And also, just to let you know, it's not going to be prescriptive in any way. It's a resource for you that if you want to use it, you certainly can. Are there any questions here?
I'm not seeing anything coming up this time.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll go to the next slide. That just shows the timeline, sort of where we're at, where we're going. We're at the STAR. There'll be one more workshop in April. Last time we had said it'd either be April or May. April is when we'll have the discussion draft ready, sit down, talk about it with everyone. And then in May, we will present the draft guidelines at the commission. We'll hold office hours in May and June. So April, about that after that last stakeholder workshop in April, that's when we'll have the, what did we use last time? I think it was SurveyMonkey. We just had people select their preferred office hour slot, and it was great. It added it to my calendar instantly. I didn't have to do anything, which I loved. So we'll be doing that again. They were really useful. We got a lot of really, really, really good engagement during office hours. I'm hoping to see more of it this time. I won't go through the whole schedule, just up until the office hours. So if there are any questions here, I'd love to know what they are. And then if not, we can move to the next slide, which is our open discussion, if there's anything, and then a wrap up. So here,
sorry, Rebecca, we just got a question that, or a hand raised that came in.
Okay.
Aaliyah, go ahead.
Hi, this is Elliot Rosner from LA Metro. So just taking a step back for a second to talk about the appendix again. We were wondering if during the development of the guidelines, if you guys would consider adding a transportation equity supplement, like one that's in the SB1 program guidelines. And the reason I ask this is because for transit projects, the information about riders is typically their origin and destination. It may not include information of the residence of the rider. And this can be problematic in establishing disadvantage, as frequently used measures like household income do assume the residence of the community member. And so it could be helpful for transit projects to be able to rely on the direct identification of transit users as a disadvantaged community.
That's pretty brilliant, actually, because they are a community. Well, they can be a community, but they're not really a community, right? Because a community is a group of people who come together, either they live together, right, or they interact with each other because of like a shared commonality. Is transit ridership a community? Do you have a community of transit riders? That's interesting. I don't know. Potentially.
Okay. Yeah,
But
just wondering, because we see it in the
yeah.
other competitive programs, and there's already another section in the last cycle's guidelines. I believe it's the community data tools. And there's a lot of similarities between that and the transportation equity supplement. So just wondering if
we do have the supplement. It's in Appendix B, I think. Take a look at that and let me know if that's what you're thinking about or if there's something missing that we should add.
Okay.
Rebecca, can you explain why you were asking if transit riders can be considered a community?
Oh, yeah. So in the program, we have, you know, in order for a project to be funded, there needs to be a nexus to a climate vulnerable community. Community in the way that it is sort of defined that I have seen in this profession is more of who lives in an area, or it's kind of like an immobile community, right? Unless you're unhoused for the most part. I haven't actually seen community defined as a group of or people who use a certain transportation mode. And I personally thought that was very interesting and sort of tickled my brain. And so that was sort of why I mentioned it, Lori. Because that's interesting. If you can define transit riders as a community, as a climate vulnerable community, which I think you might be able to have a case there. I haven't actually seen that defined in the definition we've been using, which was developed by the governor's Office of Planning and Research. So yeah. Did you say Elia?
Yes, Elia.
Elia, thank you. Yeah, if you want to take a look at the guidelines that are up on the website, they're the ones from last cycle, obviously, but those are what we're using now to update. Check the equity appendix and please let me know if it's missing something that you think should be added.
Okay, thank you. And I'll take a look at that appendix and I will follow up with you.
Thank you.
Sometime later.
Yeah.
I'm still wondering about it.
No rush. Yeah.
Thank you.
We have one other hand raised, and I apologize if I'm stating your name incorrectly, but Rabiul, please feel free to make your comment.
Hi, Rabiul.
Yeah, no, I think I don't have any comment. I think that's a mistake, Rebecca. Yeah.
Oh, okay. No worries, Rabiul.
Okay,
Nice to hear from you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we can, nothing else, right, Alika?
Nope, nothing else.
Okay. So yeah, open stakeholder, we already sort of had that, but are there any other questions before we end? Because we will be ending early today, I do think.
We got one comment that came in stating, are transit agencies or special governments allowed to apply this cycle? I didn't see them listed in the guidelines.
The eligibility is completely unchanged from the first cycle. So transit agencies can apply, and special governments, some of them can apply, not all of them. The I don't remember off the top of my head. I know GPAs can, but if you look at the guidelines that are up on the website from cycle 1, the eligibility is completely unchanged from cycle or in cycle 2. And if you click the next slide, Alika, it'll just highlight the next steps. And I got ahead of myself. I already kind of went through this. So April, look out for stakeholder meeting. May will present at the commission, and in May and June we'll hold office hours. So that is it. I think that's the last slide, Alika, if you want to click it. Yeah. So thank you all. There any other questions, last minute comments? You can say them here. Definitely feel free to email me if you don't like speaking in public. I totally understand that. And we'll see you all again in April.
Just a bunch of thank yous in the chat.
Okay, great. All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much.